Hello everyone, in today's video we are gonna decode the economic survey 2026 from an examination. This is not just a document of GDP numbers and government schemes. This survey is a complete strategic map of India's economy. So it tells us where India stands, the risks it faces, and how the country is trying to move from stability to transformation. So now we enter the macro section: growth, fiscal policy, RBI, banking, external sector, and inflation. So this is the heart of economic survey. So the core narrative is that the world has changed. So earlier globalization was mean labor efficiency, produced where it's the cheapest, sell where demand exists. But now trade, technology, finance, energy, and supply chains are being shaped by geopolitics. So that is why the phrase geoeconomics is replacing the frictionless globalization. So India's projected FY27 growth of 6.8 to 7.2% is not happening in an easy world. It is happening despite geopolitical risk, trade fragmentation, and supply chain shifts. So this slide gives us India's growth formula. So first, capital accumulation, that means capex, investment, logistics, and infrastructure. Second, labor input, that means formalization, skilling, employability, and labor force. Third, total factor productivity, that means by technology, by institutions, digital public infrastructure, and regulatory simplification. Potential GDP means the maximum sustainable output an economy can produce without creating inflationary pressure. Geoeconomics means using trade, technology, finance, and supply chains as instruments of power. Uh, Critical minerals are important because they are needed for batteries, defense, electronics, and clean energy. TFP means growth through efficiency, technology, and better institutions. Fiscal policy is presented as a macroeconomic anchor. Fiscal deficit fell from 9.2 GDP in FY21 to 4.4% in FY26 budget estimate. That is a major consolidation path. Primary deficit also declined sharply. The mega message is that India is trying to maintain growth without losing financial credibility. This slide tells us India's tax system is becoming stronger. So revenue receipts as a share of GDP improved, gross tax revenue improved as well. So direct taxes now form a higher share of gross tax revenue. Income tax returns increased from 6.9 crore to 9.2 crore. Capital expenditure is one of the most repeated themes of recent economic surveys. Revenue expenditure runs the government today. Capital expenditure becomes important for tomorrow's economy. So roads, ports, railways, power, digital infrastructure, urban systems. So these create long-term productivity. So SASCI is important because states also need capex support. India cannot build infrastructure only from Delhi. States are equally important as well. So GST 2.0 is presented as a simplification and growth reform. The proposed structure has an 18% standard rate, 5% merit rate, and 40% rate for demerit or sin goods. The expected impact has three channels. First, consumption boost. Second, manufacturing and trade boost. Third, correction of inverted duty structure. Inverted duty structure means inputs are taxed more than the final goods. That blocks working capital and hurts competitiveness. So weighted average call rate is the operating target of monetary policy. So repo rate is a rate at which RBI lends to banks. SDF absorbs liquidity. MSF gives overnight borrowing support to the banks. CRR is the share of deposits bank keep with the Reserve Bank of India. So this is one of the strongest positive stories. So GNPA and NNPA ratios have fallen to multi-decade lows. The economic survey highlights GNPAs reaching 2.2% by September 2025. Now, India has moved from twin balance sheet stress to great expansion. So earlier banks had loans and bad loans, and corporates were over leveraged. So today, healthier banks can support investment and growth. APY and NPS are both pension related, but their target group differ. APY is more about pension inclusion for the unorganized and lower income sections. NPS is the broader retirement saving architecture. Insurance is not just a financial product, it is risk protection. Life premium, non-life premium, and total premium income have all increased. Insurance AUM is also very large. So this slide shows how our financial markets are becoming deeper. IPOs have increased, resource mobilization has increased, RBI consolidated over 9,000 circulars and guidelines. SEBI's initiatives such as SEBI Check, SEBI vs Scam, ESG debt framework, and municipal bond outreach show how regulation is moving towards investor protection and market development. Free AI is also important because AI in finance needs responsibility, transparency, and control check. The Securities Market Code 2025 consolidates security market laws. It replaces SRCA 1956, SEBI Act 1992, and Depositories Act 1996. The theme is regulatory simplification. So, in one line to sum it up, India is trying to make financial regulation cleaner, simpler, and more modern. PMMY stands for Pradhan Mantri Mudra Yojana. The key theme here is funding the unfunded over 36 lakh crore distributed and more than 55 crore loan accounts. This shows large scale microcredit expansion. So the strongest social point here is that women access 69% of microloans. So PMMY is micro enterprise credit and financial inclusion. PM Swanidhi is for street vendors. So PMMY is broader micro enterprise credit. PM Swanidhi is specially for street vendor credit because it links finance with dignity of work. Street vendors are a major part of India's informal urban economy. Credit access helps them increase income, upgrade housing, improve food access, and reduce dependence on informal lenders. The external sector section begins with global trade uncertainty. Restrictive trade measures are rising faster than facilitation measures. This means countries are becoming more protective. EMDs or emerging market and developing economies are more vulnerable to trade uncertainty than advanced economies. So the key phrase here is global trade is shifting from efficiency-led integration to strategic fragmentation. So India imports more goods than it exports. That creates a merchandise trade deficit. But India exports a lot of services as well, such as IT, professional services, consulting, business services, and that creates a service surplus. So India's external account is stabilized by invisible exports. India UAE, CEPA, India Australia, ECTA, India EFTA, TEPA, India UK CETA, India Oman, SEPA, and India New Zealand FTA. The wider strategy is diversification. In a a global trade environment, India wants more trade partners, more market access, and better integration into global value chains. So here are the full forms. Can moderated from 1.3% of GDP to 0.8% of GDP. Forex reserve have crossed 700 billion US dollars. Import power improved. So this means India has a buffer against external shocks. The simple explanation in this context is if global oil prices rise, capital flows become volatile, or exports slow down. Forex reserves and services exports provide protection. India attracted very large greenfield digital investment between 2020 and 2024. So it includes digital services, data centers, and IT infrastructure. So the big phrase here is GVC, which is global value chain. So India's opportunity is to move from being a market to being a production, technology, and innovation hub in reconfigured global supply chains. So average headline inflation during April 2025 to December 2025 was 1.7%, the lowest since the beginning of the CPI series according to the DEC and official highlights. Low inflation supports real purchasing power. Headline inflation includes food and fuel. Core inflation excludes food and fuel. Vegetable and pulses inflation were negative, which pulled down headline inflation, but core inflation remained higher than headline inflation. So the reasons here are moderate global metal prices, good agriculture conditions, food grain stock position, GST rate rationalization, and timely interventions in pulses. So inflation softened because of supply side comfort and base effect, not necessarily because of demand collapse. Terms of trade means relative price movement. Manufacturing terms of trade decline with respect to agriculture and services. This can compress manufacturing's share in GVA even when real production improves. So now the survey shifts from macro stability to sectoral transformation. This is where India tries to convert stability into long-term structural change. So agriculture is no longer only about cereals. The survey highlights diversification, livestock, fisheries, aquaculture, and high-value agriculture. Fishing and aquaculture growth is especially important. Crop diversification must reflect soil, rainfall, and market conditions. This is very important. Policy cannot be one size fits all. So a crop that works very well in Punjab may not work in Andhra. A crop that works only in Telangana may not work in Bihar. So the surveys clearly tells us that crop choices must be economically viable and agronomically sustainable. PM Kisan gives income support. PM Fasal Bima Yojana gives insurance. KCC gives credit. Soil health cards improve input use. FPOs improve aggregation. Digital Agriculture Mission brings technology. Services share in nominal GDP increased to 53.6 in FY26. So services PMI at 58.9 shows strong expansion. For India, services are not just call centers or IT. Services include finance, logistics, professional work, tourism, digital platforms, real estate, GCCs, and consulting. Services employ 30% of the total workforce and a much higher share of urban workforce. They also contribute heavily to formal job creation. Most importantly, services exports stabilize India's external account. So services are a growth engine, job engine, and external sector stabilizer. Port cargo, air passengers, and railway freight have all increased. So this shows that economic activity needs logistics. A country cannot become a manufacturing and services power without efficient movement of goods and people. So here's where the survey becomes quite futuristic. Foreign satellites are launched, space export earnings, NSL revenue, satellite data services all show India's space economy expanding. Ocean economy and tourism are also highlighted. So the message is very clear that India's service frontier is expanding beyond the traditional IT. Orange economy means creative economy, media, entertainment, gaming, animation, VFX, and live events. So this is very important because culture is becoming commerce. So gaming revenue, animation, VFX, and digital media are not just entertainment sectors. They create jobs, exports, branding, and tourism flows. So earlier, India was seen as a back office destination. Now, GCCs are moving into analytics, AI, product development, cybersecurity, finance, and strategy growth. Gen AI startups are rising from 66 to 890 is a massive signal. So India is moving from outsourcing to innovation. Industry is showing optimism. The business expectations index above 100 means firms are optimistic. Medium and high technology activities account for 46.3% of manufacturing value added. This is important because India does not want low-end manufacturing alone, it wants technology-intensive manufacturing. Cement, steel, coal, pharmaceuticals, automobiles, and EVs all show different dimensions of industrial growth. EV registrations have a CAGR of 62.5. This is the green mobility transition. The industrial story is not just volume, it is scale plus technology plus sustainability. Mobile manufacturing value rose from 0.18 lakh crore to 5.45 lakh crore. That is nearly a 30-fold rise. The PLI scheme is very important here. PLI means production linked incentive. Global Innovation Index rank improved from 81 to 38. DPIIT recognized startups rose to 1.97 lakh. Patent applications and trademark registrations improved. So this is the transition from a consumption economy to a creation economy. Effective capex rose from 3.27 lakh crore to 15.48 lakh crore. FPP approvals also increased. Infrastructure creates three things: connectivity, capacity, and competitiveness. It reduces logistic costs, improves market access, creates jobs, and raises long-term productivity. Power sector improvement is very important. Rural power supply rose significantly. Urban supply is near full day levels. AT&C losses declined. Distribution companies moved from loss to profit. National highways, high-speed corridors, port capacity, vessel turnaround time, railway commissioning, and inland water transport. All these numbers show logistics transformation. BharatNet connects gram panchayats through optical fiber. Total telecom connection increased massively. Digital connectivity is now like electricity or roads. It is basic infrastructure. Without digital connectivity, financial inclusion, e-governance, online education, telemedicine, and digital payments cannot scale. Internet connections crossed 100 crores. Broadband connections rose sharply. Average data cost declined drastically. Monthly data consumption increased. So this is India's tax society. Cheap data has democratized access to information, services, payments, entertainment, and entrepreneurship. Jal Jeevan Mission crossing 81% rural household tap water coverage shows basic service delivery at scale. Renewable energy is clean, but it is material intensive. Solar power needs silver, polysilicon, and aluminium. Wind power needs copper and other materials. So, green transition is not only about climate, it is also about minerals, mining, supply chains, and energy security. Nuclear power is presented as the clean baseload energy. Solar and wind are intermittent. They depend on sunlight and wind availability. Nuclear can provide 24/7 low carbon power. So that is why nuclear is strategically important for heavy industry, hydrogen, energy security, and decarbonization. The National Nuclear Energy Mission has an allocation of 20,000 crore rupees. SMR means small modular reactor. The target is to develop indigenous SMRs and reach 100 gigawatt nuclear capacity by 2047. So India's storage requirement is 411 gigawatt hour by 2031-32. Energy storage is missing link in the renewable revolution. So without storage, solar and wind cannot fully support grid reliability. ACC means Advanced Chemistry Cell. BESS means Battery Energy Storage System. These are important. Reverse 3.0 is about single window clearances and digital approvals. API frameworks cover waste streams. Environment audit rules 2025 introduced third party audits. Green bonds, BRSR, sovereign green bonds, green deposits, ESG debt securities all show that sustainability is entering finance. BRSR means business responsibility and sustainability reporting. India has around 25 crore school students, 14.7 lakh schools, and over 1 crore teachers. Higher education enrollment is also large, so the targets are 100% school GER by 2030 and 50% higher education GER by 2035. NEP 2020 is 5 plus 3 plus 3 plus 4 structure is always important. Digital content in Indian languages is also crucial. India cannot achieve educational inclusion only through English-based digital learnings. So language access, tribal hostels, girls' education, and digital resources are all part of the inclusion. Bharat supports competency-based assessment. APAR IDs are track learners' progress. Vidya Samiksha Kendra monitors learning progress. This is the governance layer of education. Infant mortality has fallen, life expectancy has increased, protein and calorie intake is improved. But the survey also highlights lifestyle and obesity. This shows India's health challenge is changing. So earlier the challenge was mainly with infectious diseases and access. Now India also faces lifestyle diseases, obesity and mental health issues. Centers of Excellence, e-Sanjeevani, diabetic retinopathy screening, you win, Ayushman Arogya Mandirs and Ayushman Bharat cards all show digital health scaling. So the big point here is India is using digital public infrastructure for health delivery. So this can improve screening, monitoring, and access and affordability. Eat Right campaign, Fit India, Khelo India, digital addiction measures, Telemanas, and Shut Clinic. Teleman's headline is 14416. The survey recognizes that mental health, obesity, and digital addiction are not private issues alone. They affect productivity, education, family well-being, and national human capital. So LFPR means labor force participation rate, UR means unemployment rate. So it gives us the current labor market data. So LFPR tells us how many people are participating in the labor market. Unemployment tells us how many among participants are unable to find the work. 29 labor laws were consolidated into four labor codes. So this is reform by simplification. The four codes are Code on Wages, Code on Social Security, Occupational Safety, Health, and Working Condition Code, and Industrial Relations Code. So the estimated potential job creation is about 77 lakh jobs. Fixed term employment, equal benefits, mandatory employment letters, UN portability, gig worker recognition, pressures, night shifts for women, national floor wage, single registration, single return, and single license. So the larger theme here is formalization with flexibility. So India is trying to make labor markets more modern without ignoring worker protection. Female LFPR increased from 23.3 to 41.7. This is one of the biggest social economic shifts in the survey. Women's work participation is not only about gender justice, it is about GDP growth, household incomes, entrepreneurship, and demographic dividend. Support levers include safe mobility, care economy, internships, inclusive streets, and Anganwadi expansions. Skilling is moving towards industry alignment. The national scheme for upgradation of ITIs target, 100 ITIs. PMKVY 4.0 uses NSQF aligned job roles. Rozgar and apprenticeship mailers connect training with jobs. NATS 2.0 and NAPS 2.0 use DBT based stipend transfer, skill impact bonds, link funding to placement and retention outcomes. Skill vouchers are demand side financing instruments. So this shows a shift from spending on training to paying for outcomes. Some forms. Smavit were mapped villages and issued property cards. Namo drone 3D links women SHGs with drone-based rural services. Rural connectivity, Har Ghar Jal and housing for all show rural infrastructure expansion. The big idea is rural formalization, land, water, roads, housing, technology, and livelihoods. DDU GKY supports rural skilling. Our cities provide self-employment training. Day and RLM builds women-led SHGs. Meri Panchayat app and e-Gram Swaraj improve participatory governance. Extreme poverty is shown at 5.3% in 2022-23 based on the revised international poverty line. So this connects rural development with dignity, assets, and local governance. So here are some of full forms. So this is very important. AI has five trade-offs: scale versus inclusion, proprietary versus open, data center scale versus local compute, regulation versus innovation, frontier models versus application. For India, AI strategy cannot copy the US or China blindly. India needs AI for productivity, inclusion, and domestic value capture. The survey argues that not all future jobs are white collar. Hands on, high skilled work will matter: metalwork, culinary arts, practical sectors, and applied skills. This is very important. AI will not remove the need for human capability, it will increase the need for adaptive, experimental, and practical learning. India has nearly 1 billion connected people. That creates a huge data ecosystem. But data should not only create value for foreign platforms, it should also support domestic research, domestic model, sector specific AI, and national productivity. Healthcare data, education data, and agriculture data can train India specific AI models. The survey's AI message is balanced. India does not need to build only the biggest model. India needs AI for healthcare, education, agriculture, governance, skilling, and productivity. So AI should be a productivity amplifier, not merely a labor substitute. Cities are productivity platforms. They improve worker job matching, innovation, infrastructure sharing, and knowledge spillovers. But poorly managed cities create congestion, pollution, housing stress, and time loss. So urbanization is not automatically good. Good urban governance makes it productive. FSI means flow space index. Indian cities have lower FSI compared to global cities like Singapore, Tokyo, and New York. Higher FSI can improve land productivity and reduce sprawl. Land reforms include better titling for Aadhaar and document registration systems. This is important for housing, urban planning, and economic density. Rush hour time lost in Bangalore, Mumbai, and Delhi shows that time itself is an economic resource. Traffic is not just irritation, it is productivity loss. So, waste processing increased from 16% to 80%. That is a major uh, urban governance improvement. Mobility waste and service delivery are now central to economic competitiveness. The Indore model shows that urban reform is not only technology, it is behavior, leadership, communication, and penalties. The survey highlights rule certainty over rule proliferation. In simpler words, cities should not have too many confusing rules. They need clear rules, predictable enforcement, and citizen participation. Future cities must integrate informality, imagination, and governance. So, this is a revision layer. Here are some of the important full forms. Have a look at this. Master theme of this survey is simple. Part 1 says India has built macroeconomic resilience through growth, fiscal discipline, cleaner banks, and external buffers, inflation, etc. Part 2 says India is trying to convert that stability into transformation through agriculture diversification, manufacturing scale, infrastructure, AI, skilling, climate resilience, and better cities. So the one line conclusion here is that India is moving from stability to transformation and from aspiration to execution. Thank you.